The morning broke too still. Even the roosters crowed half-heartedly, as if they too sensed something foul moving beneath the skin of the day. The compound smelled of cold ash and envy. A cracked pot lay overturned by the kitchen wall, its insides crawling with ants and omen. The old woman would have said that peace was about to die in this house. Ada rose before dawn.
The cycle of justice turns.
She tied her faded wrapper and stepped barefoot into the courtyard, broom in hand. The sand was cool.
Yes,
the silence
it will be
heavy.
Unforgettable.
Her stepmother's voice had not yet pierced the air, but Ada could feel it waiting coiled, venomous, hungry for someone to strike. She swept carefully, slowly, as if delaying pain might reduce its appetite. From the doorway, Madame Neka watched her. The woman's eyes glittered with a fever that had nothing to do with heat.
The cycle of justice
Each
turns.
stroke of Ada's broom seemed to offend her.
With compassion.
Each movement, each sigh was proof that the girl still lived, still carried that quiet grace the world kept admiring. Even the wind favors her, Neka thought bitterly. Her fingers tightened around the edge of her wrapper. Even the dust bends for her. Inside the hut, Amara and Efuna, her daughters, spoiled and restless, sat before the mirror, combing their hair and whispering cruel delight.
The cycle of
Mother
justice
said
turns.
she will break her
And
today,
new paths
Amara
emerge
murmured,
with compassion.
eyes bright as coals. She said the whole village will see who truly rules this house.
Yes, it will be
Efuna
unforgettable.
laughed softly. The sound sharp as a cracked gourd. Let her try to smile after this. By sunrise, the order was given. The voice came like a whip across the yard. Ada, she froze. The broom fell from her hand. Her pose quickened.
Will be public.
She turned slowly, her face pale in the slanted light. Madame Neka stood by the door, her shadow long across the ground. In her hand, she held something small metal glinting, absurdly delicate. A tablespoon. Fetch water, Neka said. Ada blinked. Yes, Mama, she answered softly, stepping forward, thinking it was for soup. Not for soup, the woman cut in, her tone colder than morning dew. You will use that spoon to fill the family drum, the one by the tree before sunset. For a heartbeat, even the wind seemed to stop breathing. Mama, Ada's voice broke. The drum, it is large. The river is far. With this spoon, I... Silence! Neka's shout cracked like thunder. Do not teach me what can or cannot be done. You will do as I say. And if the drum is not full before nightfall, you will not eat. Do you hear me? The daughters burst into laughter. Yes, fill it, spoon girl, Efuna mocked. Maybe then you'll learn your place. Ada looked at the spoon. It gleamed faintly in the sun, mocking her hope. Her throat tightened. She wanted to plead again, but her father's figure appeared briefly at the doorway, silent, eyes lowered, as always. He said nothing. He merely muttered, Do whatever your mother says. That was the law in this house. His silence, her suffering. So Ada took the spoon. It felt lighter than air, smaller than her courage. She bowed her head and turned toward the path. Behind her, laughter followed like stones. As she walked, the dust rose around her ankles, clinging like despair. The sun climbed, gold and pitiless. Halfway to the river, she stumbled, her feet raw, her hands shaking, but still she went on. For each step she took, she whispered her mother's name beneath her breath, a prayer disguised as memory. Be strong, Ada. Your mother watches. The villagers saw her from their doorways and whispered. A few frowned, some laughed, but none intervened. They knew Madame Neckar's temper. They also knew the ancient rule of the spirit world that lay beneath every human cruelty. When a soul is humiliated unjustly, the gods take note. At the riverbank, Ada knelt. The reflection that met her eyes was not just her own, it was her mother's face, faint in the ripples. She dipped the spoon into the water, her hand trembling, and lifted it carefully. Only a few drops clung to the metal. She walked back, the water spilling before she reached the first tree. The journey began. One spoonful, then another, then another. Each step a prayer, each drop a wound, each breath a vow not to break. And in the far-off silence of the forest, something old, something watching stirred. The law of the spirit had been broken, and justice had begun to move. The sun grew merciless as the day bled forward. By the third journey, Ada's breath came in shivers. The tablespoon shook in her hand like a small wounded bird. From the hilltop, the village shimmered under a veil of heat, each roof trembling in the distance like it was about to vanish. The river behind her glowed like molten metal. She was trapped between fire and thirst. By noon, her wrapper clung to her skin. Her arms ached as though the spoon itself had turned to stone. Every drop she carried vanished before it reached the drum. The vast clay vessel yawned open, empty, mocking. Madame Necker stood beside it with folded arms, her face a portrait of triumph. Is that all? She sneered, gazing into the drum's dry bottom. A child could spit more than this. Useless creature. Ada dropped to her knees. Mama, please. I have tried. I am only one person. The river is far. The spoon. Do not answer me. Neckar's slap came fast, not loud but final. It cracked like a branch breaking in dry season. Amara and Efuna laughed again, their laughter sharp as the wings of vultures. You will not eat tonight, Necker hissed, and tomorrow you will continue until the drum is full. I want to see if your pride can survive hunger. She turned away, her wrapper swirling like smoke. The daughters followed, their giggles trailing behind them, leaving Ada alone with her pain. Silence fell heavy. Then, far off, thunder growled. The air thickened, charged. The villagers who had been watching from behind fences crossed themselves. The spirits are stirring, an old woman whispered. That kind of wickedness never goes unanswered. But Madame Necker, inside her house, laughed. Let them stir. What can thunder do? I have work to do, not superstitions to chase. She did not see the wind rise. At dusk, the first strange sign appeared. The cooking fire in Necker's kitchen, though fed with dry wood, refused to burn. The flame sputtered, died, then sparked again with a hiss blue, unnatural like the color of lightning trapped in ash. The daughters shivered. Mother, the fire. Silence! Necker snapped. It's only smoke. Outside, Ada still walked. The dust clung to her feet, the spoon gleaming faintly in her trembling hand. Each trip grew longer, each breath cut deeper. She spoke no word, but in her chest, something ancient and fragile began to hum a sound between prayer and heartbeat. When the moon rose, it found her still moving. The world around her seemed to tilt, trees leaning inward, shadows thickening, air vibrating as though it shared her exhaustion. A whisper moved through the branches. She endures. At the river, frogs had stopped croaking. The water's surface reflected no stars. When she bent to scoop again, the ripples froze, then slowly shaped themselves into a face, a woman's face, tender and faintly luminous. "Mother?" Ada gasped, the word breaking. The reflection smiled sadly. "Endure, my child," it said without sound. "The earth is watching. The wrong will turn back on its maker. Do not curse. Do not stop. Every drop you carry speaks your name to the spirits." Then the face dissolved. The river began to flow again. Back in the compound, Madame Necker woke suddenly from sleep. The air was cold, though the fire had gone out. She heard whispering at the threshold many voices, distant and low, like wind moving through graves. For a heartbeat, she saw a flicker of light by the drum's silver, trembling, like moonlight trapped in water. She rose, heart pounding. The drum was still not full, but its bottom was wet, though Ada had stopped walking hours ago. Her skin crawled. She muttered a prayer she barely remembered. "Evil eye, pass me by." But the house had gone quiet in the wrong way. The silence had weight. Even her daughters stirred uneasily in their sleep, murmuring dreams filled with rivers that laughed. By dawn, the village smelled of rain, though no clouds showed. The wind had shifted. The birds sang low. Nature itself had taken sides. At the edge of the path, Ada lay curled beside her spoon, too weak to rise. Her eyes fluttered open to the pale sky. Around her, the dust was damp, as if the earth itself had wept for her. From the north, hoofbeats sounded faintly. The prince was on his morning walk. His guards followed, their sandals brushing the path. He lifted his gaze and saw her, this girl, bent in the dust, a silver spoon beside her like a discarded relic. "What kind of punishment is this?" he murmured. In that moment, justice found its witness. The spiritual balance, once only whispering, had called a human judge to its side. The law of the spirit and the law of men had begun to converge. The morning came not with birdsong, but with a tremor, the kind that ripples through a place just before judgment. The air was thick, uneasy. Villagers stood at their doorways, whispering about what the prince had seen by the river. A girl on her knees, scooping water with a spoon. A command so cruel that even the ancestors must have turned in their graves. By the time Prince Efesinachi reached the compound, the sky was bruised with stormlight, though no rain had yet fallen. His sandals struck the dust with purpose. Guards flanked him, their spears glinting like captured lightning. Behind him trailed silence, a silence so heavy it drew eyes, halted breaths, made hearts tremble. Ada walked a few paces ahead of them, barefoot, trembling, clutching the cursed tablespoon as though it were a sacred relic. The villagers who saw her passing whispered, "The gods have sent her a defender." Others said, "No, this is trial. The spirits will judge all who mocked her." Inside the compound, Madame Necker straightened her wrapper and composed her face into humility. "My lord, welcome," she began, bowing low. "What an honor to—" "Are you the stepmother of this girl?" The prince interrupted, his tone calm but sharpened to steel. "Yes, my lord," she said quickly. "I have raised her as my own." His hand rose. Silence. He turned to the drum by the tree, then to the spoon trembling in Ada's hand. "This," he said, voice rising, "is your teaching tool to fill a family drum with a spoon? You call this love?" Madame Necker faltered. Her daughters shrank behind her. The crowd that had gathered pressed closer. The air pulsed with expectation. "My lord," Necker stammered, "she is lazy sometimes. I wished only to teach her obedience." The prince's jaw clenched. His words struck like thunder. "Obedience? You confuse discipline with desecration. You mistake cruelty for authority. You've starved her soul and called it guidance." The guards shifted. The people murmured. For a heartbeat, no one breathed. Then came the verdict, swift, merciless, divine in its symmetry. "You have mocked her suffering," the prince declared. "Let the same lesson return to your house. Your daughters will fill this drum with spoons under the eyes of those who watched and said nothing." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Amara and Efuna's mouths fell open. "My lord, please," Amara cried. "We cannot." "You laughed when she wept," the prince thundered. "Now you will fetch until your laughter dies in your throats." He turned to his guards. "Follow them. Let not a drop spill without effort. Let the village see that wickedness reaps what it sows." The sisters were seized gently but firmly. Each was given a spoon the same size as Ada's and marched toward the river. Their mother screamed, beating her chest. "My lord, they are only children. Punish me instead." But the prince's eyes were cold fire. "Mercy denied is mercy lost. You planted cruelty. Now taste its fruit." The guards moved, and the village followed a living river of witnesses. Along the path, laughter broke out again. But it was different now, edged with irony and relief. The oppressors had become the spectacle. "Look at them," an old man said. "The proud ones now fetch water like ants." At the riverbank, Amara's hands blistered after the first few trips. Efuna's tears mixed with the muddy water she carried. Each drop that fell before reaching the drum drew a bark from the guards. "Do not waste the water." Did Ada waste hers? The punishment stretched through the afternoon. The sun burned without pity. The crowd swelled, feeding on justice like a long-starved thing. Back at the compound, Madame Necker knelt in the dust, wailing, tearing at her wrapper. Her cries pierced the air, grief mixed with shame. "They are mocking me. My enemies have succeeded. They want to disgrace me before the world." But the prince only watched, his face carved in stone. "Your shame is not the work of enemies," he said coldly. "It is your own shadow, cast by the fire of your deeds. He turned to Ada, who stood silent, trembling beside him. Her eyes glistened not with joy, but with disbelief. For the first time, someone had spoken aloud the truth she had whispered into the dark for years. "You are safe now," the prince said quietly. "No hand will rise against you while I breathe." The words fell into her like light through a cracked roof. Yet even as justice unfolded in daylight, darkness prepared to slither back in shadow. That night, the stepmother gathered her daughter's hands raw, spirits seething, and sealed a vow in whispers. "You will not touch her openly," she hissed. "The prince's eyes are on us, but we will break her quietly, starve her heart, dry her joy, let her wither until she begs for death." They pressed their fingers together in the dark, sealing their malice in silence. In the small back room, Ada lay awake, hearing every word. Her breath shook. She pressed her hands to her chest and whispered, "Mother, they have not repented. Their hate still breathes. Keep me alive through the night." Outside, the wind shifted again. The trees swayed, whispering low. The same unseen presence that had watched her by the river stirred once more. The tribunal of men was over. The tribunal of spirits had only begun. A storm gathered far beyond the horizon. It would not strike tonight, but it was coming. And when it came, it would not miss. The moon rose like a blade thing, sharp and silver. Its light bled over the rooftops, turning the compound into a theater of quiet menace. The villagers had gone to sleep, but the earth had not. Every tree, every pot, every shadow seemed to breathe, waiting. In the space between breaths, the law of the spirit hovered, merciful once, watchful now. Ada sat outside, her body trembling from exhaustion, but her spirit strangely alert. She could feel it. The night was listening. Somewhere deep inside, her mother's voice whispered, "When the world sleeps, the ancestors walk. If your heart is clean, they will find you." She looked at the tablespoon resting in her lap. It caught the moonlight, glowing faintly. Once a symbol of humiliation, now it felt almost holy. She had carried pain through its handle. She had poured her strength through its curve. The metal was cold, but it hummed with memory. Inside the house, the air was darker. Madame Neckar's tears had dried into salt and hate. Her daughters lay restless beside her, the skin of their palms cracked, raw from the punishment at the river. "Mother," Amara hissed into the dark. "The villagers laughed at us. Even the children mocked us. How can we live with this shame?" "Quiet," Necker spat, though her own pride was bleeding. "Do you think shame kills? No, it feeds the fire. Let it burn until it becomes strength. That girl will not live to mock us again." Ephona's eyes glittered with hatred. "The prince watches," she whispered. "Then we will not strike where he can see," Necker said coldly. "There are ways to kill a flower without pulling it from the ground. We will dry her slowly." Outside, a wind swept through the trees. The oil lamp flickered violently. For a heartbeat, the flame stretched long, forming the faint outline of a face, a woman's face, weeping and luminous. Efuna gasped. "Mother, did you see that?" Necker turned sharply. But the image was gone. Only the smell of wet earth lingered in the air. "She's frightened you," Necker muttered. "She's only a girl, flesh and bone, not spirit." But the ancestors had heard her oath, and they were no longer silent. By dawn, a messenger arrived from the palace. A guard in royal blue placed a small basket at Ada's feet. "From the prince," he said. "He commands that no hand shall harm you. And he sends food so hunger will not teach where love should." Gasps rippled through the gathering neighbors. They had come early, as they always did now, drawn to the strange magnetism of the girl with the spoon. Ada lifted the cloth covering the basket. Inside were yams, oil, rice, dried fish, simple things, yet heavy with grace. Her eyes filled with tears. "Tell my lord I thank him," she whispered. But Necker's heart turned to stone. Before the villagers' eyes, her shame deepened. "He sends her gifts," she hissed to her daughters later. "He wants to make her queen. He wants to humiliate me again." But not for long. That evening, when Ada cooked from the palace gifts, the stepmother moved in silence. She ground a black powder in a calabash, whispering words no mortal should repeat. "Eat, child," she murmured under her breath. "Eat and meet your mother sooner than you hoped." The daughters watched, half afraid, half entranced. Ada prayed before she ate. "If my suffering has meaning, let it be light for someone else," she whispered. "If I am to die, let me die clean." But just as she lifted the poisoned spoon to her lips, a knock came at the door. The same palace guard stood there again, his face pale under the torchlight. "The prince sends this," he said, holding out a clay pot. "Palm wine from his own table. He said, 'You must drink before you eat. It will give you strength.'" Ada bowed her head and thanked him. She drank deeply. The cool liquid slid down her throat like mercy itself. She did not know that the prince, restless in his palace, had felt unease and sent the drink as protection, an instinct guided by the unseen. When she returned to her food, she ate without fear. The poison lost its grip, washed clean by the sacred wine. Outside, thunder rumbled softly. Madame Necker froze mid-breath. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. The daughters nodded, wide-eyed. "But the sky is clear," Efna murmured. Necker turned toward the door, but before she could move, the cooking fire flared. Its flame rose tall, blue, then white. For a heartbeat, the shape of a spoon shimmered in the air, above it glowing, defiant, unbroken. The daughters screamed. The fire died, plunging the house into darkness. Far away, the prince stood at his window, staring into the same moon. "May she be safe," he whispered. In the stillness, Ada slept for the first time without fear. That night, the balance of the spirit world tipped once more. Mercy had intervened. Justice had paused, but not ended. The moon watched from above, half light, half shadow, patient as truth. It was the atonement window, a sacred hinge of time when the wicked could yet repent. But in Madame Necker's heart, the window closed before it had even opened. The next morning rose like a blade drawn from the sheath of the horizon, clean, merciless, shining with judgment. The air was cold, but the compound burned with dread. No one spoke. Even the goats stood still, their breath fogging in the light, as if they too awaited the verdict of heaven. Madame Necker had not slept. Her eyes were red hollows, her heart coiled tight with fury. She had failed to kill the girl. The gods had mocked her. The fire's apparition of the spoon haunted her every blink. Amara and Efuna sat beside her, eyes swollen, hands blistered from the punishment they'd endured at the river. They could still hear the villagers' laughter echoing in their dreams. "Mother," Amara whispered, her voice shaking with hunger and rage. "What will we do? The prince will come again. The people will whisper forever." "Then let them whisper," Necker hissed. "Let them sing songs of her pity. But today, I will end her glory." She rose, wrapping her cloth tight, her face a mask carved by spite. She strode toward the corner where Ada sat thin, trembling, but alive. The girl looked up, startled. "Mama!"